Greetings, everyone. I'm your host, Stark, and today is the first episode of the Advint Studios Weekly Dev Interview podcast, something that I've been meaning to do for a long time. And considering this is the first time, I wanted to invite someone that is a very close friend of mine, a very good dev that works on a game that I honestly expect you guys to take a look and actually try it. He's been around for a while. He knows a lot about the business, and I thought it will be a great first person to interview for the podcast and try to get things, try to get the ball rolling, since this is our first time doing something along these lines. Obviously, there will be a lot of technical difficulties, and this episode is going to be perfect to kind of get that stuff out of the way, and maybe improve in the future. But if there's someone that I want to start this with, and actually go through all the hoops and all the things that come with creating a podcast, this is the perfect partner in crime. So today I want to welcome Advint to the podcast. Advint, how are you doing?
I'm here.
You're here. Okay, so like I said, Advint is the I would say that you're the head dev, but you're pretty much the only person in the team. Like you're the dev, period, right?
Yeah, and anything I can't do, I have to contract out or find some free version of.
So you're just in the freelancing in those cases.
Yeah.
So yeah, Advint is the sole developer in the Fleeting Arts dev studio, and he's currently working on a game called Council of Lies, which is an adventure epic style game with. Well, I would say it has NTR, but it's like missable NTR, right?
Yeah, you get the option to choose at the beginning as to whether or not you want to, though I feel like I could develop that a little bit more because, NTR is kind of about the breaking of a relationship, right? And not sure I quite achieved that so far, but there's a lot of time to go.
What do you mean by there's a lot of time to go?
Well, the game is still story-wise in its early stages, so
right now
the course of the story that could easily be developed.
I saw that you are on a few platforms like itch.io and whatnot, but you seem to be under review on Patreon. What's going on there? Do you want to elaborate on that, or?
I do not trust Patreon to know who I am. That's kind of it. I think we talked about it once before, where you were kind of in the situation where you have to verify that you're a adult, and trust their third party with your information. But with all the things out there, I don't want them holding on to my info like that.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure that I gave them that information. I probably did, but at the end of the day, I also stayed away from those type of inquisitions. I remember YouTube trying to do the same thing, and I was like, bro, I'm in Portugal. Like, we don't legally have to do that. I know there's countries like the UK and a few others right now that they want to know everything about their the people that go online, but thankfully, just yet, Portugal is not that case. And when those rules kind of went through on X, for instance, they were doing it for everyone, and there was a period where I just wasn't going on X because they were trying to force me to prove who I am and send my ID, and I was like, you guys fix your stuff and then I'll come back to the platform.
Right. Yeah. Well, for that reason, I would recommend Subscribestar to most people.
Yes, I will do the same. Honestly, if people are starting nowadays, and if people have a chance that where they want to keep supporting their favorite devs, but they want the devs to make most of their money and not be completely, because Patreon just can explode at any given moment. There have been a multitude of people that have lost their accounts at the blink of an eye. So it
Right.
definitely makes people feel uneasy, especially people that make a living out of creating games like this. Patreon definitely feels like a volatile platform at the moment, don't you think?
Yeah, well, just from an adult games perspective, yes, because you're already in a somewhat volatile environment.
Right.
You only have so many people that are interested in adult games. You have plenty of people that are against adult games or adult entertainment. So in a lot of ways, you end up being a target.
Right, and yeah, well, that was an important distinction that I forgot to make. Obviously, it's yeah, I don't think there's a lot of other people that have other issues. It's mostly usually on the adult gaming world where this happens. Like other people that do the typical podcasts and whatnot. I don't think they have usually a lot of issues with Patreon. It's mostly just us. But like you said, it's not just on Patreon. It's like we're constantly being prosecuted by certain groups that can't see a cartoon titty before losing their minds.
Yeah. Oh, I drew a circular shape and put a nipple in the middle of it. My God.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go to the actual bulk of the interview. I have a few questions that I want to ask because I thought they will be the questions that people at home want to hear about, and that's probably the ones that they are going to give us the most information about creating a game. And at the end of the day, like if other devs or players listen to this, when it comes to other devs, you might get ideas, or when it comes to players, it might help you realize what you value in a game and what not, or even consider things that you didn't consider before. I know something that happened to me as a dev, and I don't know if you relate, is when I started playing games, when I started developing games, and when I started seeing how much time and effort went into creating some stuffs, I started paying a lot more attention about those same details on other people games. Do you think the same thing happened to you or something similar?
Oh yeah, sure. And then whenever I see some sort of bug or thing that is happening,
It bugs you?
that might not have been intended. It sometimes it depends on what it is. Like if it's textures in a game, I get kind of bothered by that sometimes if it's like pixelated, because I'm like, okay, well, you didn't really have to do this to add quote unquote realism. It kind of looks like shit. Honestly, so maybe don't do that.
You're talking specifically about the art right now.
About what now?
The art.
No, I'm talking about texturing because for my game I mostly use DAZ to generate the images, and as part of that, I've also learned about texturing for like generating the textures for clothing or whatever
so
else.
the art.
Yeah.
That's.
But yeah. So that's one thing that bugs me. But then you play a game and you can kind of see like design limitations or like, okay, well, I understand why they took this shortcut or decided this because clearly they were thinking about these other things at the same time. Now there's other things that AAA game devs, that's a whole other realm.
Of course,
God help you, because that's a very big machine building those games.
Right. Well, that's a perspective, for instance, that I don't have, because not working with DAZ, I will never look at DAZ art or backgrounds or whatnot with the same appreciation or the same understanding as you. Obviously, there's other things where I notice those details, and like you said, there's times where I also understand why people took certain shortcuts to get to some stuff, because we know the amount of time that goes into some stuff or how complex some stuff is, and we understand why people opted for some shortcuts in the creation of their games.
Well, it's also not necessarily just shortcuts, but even though game engines are much more accessible now as far as developing, understanding how they work, there's people creating guides all the time, whereas in the 90s they were building this stuff from scratch. But there is still that, like, okay, this is a hodgepodge of things. This doesn't necessarily work with this. I need to somehow get this, which isn't intended for what I'm going to use it for, to do what I want it to do. And that creates inherent issues.
Yeah. Well, can you walk us through the moment where you were first introduced to the world of adult games or visual novels, and what specifically about that experience drew you in?
Well, it was probably Sexy Beach Premium Resort 2. It was a Japanese game, and I don't speak Japanese. So it was an interesting experience in of itself. But
Funny enough,
I don't think
I.
sorry, go ahead.
No. That was funny enough. I also started. I was also started on Japanese games, so a lot of what it was open to interpretation.
Yeah, well, I don't think there was much in the Western sphere at that time as far as adult games at all, because like you probably had like Leisure Suit Larry or some other things that existed, but were they big or did people really know about them? Probably not. Like I think there's something called Boobcraft or something. It was a parody on Warcraft. But I've never played that, and I didn't really hear about it until years after I started playing adult games. But as far as like me playing Sexy Beach Premium Resort, I tried it. Really had a hard time understanding it, and then kind of went looking for other stuff. Found RPG Maker games, found Flash games, of course. There are tons of those around. They still are around. And then I eventually stumbled upon your game.
That's very similar to my experience. Like you said, when I started, which I can actually precisely, I cannot pinpoint it, but it was a long time ago, and most is actually like an understatement. It felt like all that there was in terms of hentai was just Eastern, Japanese, Asian stuff, right? And the only thing that I remember finding in terms of like Western stuff was at the time, I didn't even know about Patreon at the time. The typical RPG Maker games were not a thing, which actually happened propelling the Western hentai scene a lot. But at the time there was this website. The website still exists, where you could play like a bunch of Flash games. And that's pretty much all that I could find in terms of like Western stuff. So when it came to the RPG Maker games, and when it came to like all these big productions and whatnot, just like yourself, most of the stuff that I found was, true. It came from Japan. It was the typical RPG Maker games coming out of the Alsai and whatnot. So when I started, me and a few others, we were kind of pioneering and making a lot of mistakes and kind of building up on something that nowadays is clearly not the same animal that it was 15 or 20 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I think compared to what we were originally dealing with, like, people have come a long way. There's still plenty of slop out there, to use a more modern term, but there's been a lot more consistency and quality improvements, because like people were playing on RPG Maker VX Ace or RPG Maker XP when a lot of this stuff was coming out, and it's like those work well, but the resolution's lower. You got to have a bit more of an imagination. The art might not always be that great, but it's what you got.
It's funny that you say that, because I see them both ways. I see that there's, especially when it comes to the western side of things, there's definitely a lot more offer, and there's definitely a lot more quality. Mm-hmm. In fact, in many cases, I think that the West has matched or even surpassed in terms of games what has been coming out of the East. But I feel that there's just so many ways to get into the industry right now, and so many people are so interested in making like a quick buck, that you just get a lot of you know, not as good games, to put it politely.
Yeah, no, I sentiment. There's quite a few like, okay, well, titties make money. Let me just do that.
Yeah. Was there a particular game or a particular creator that caused the trigger that made you decide to stop just consuming old games and start dedicating your time to creating your own?
Well, funny enough, I'm talking to someone who one day messaged me and they said, I I've got this text and it isn't quite coming out right. You're trying to write something for a scene, and then I quickly came up with something, and you were like, "That shit's Shakespearean. What? What are you doing?" Shakespearean in a good way, not antiquated way.
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh, okay. I guess I can write." Which I have a competent level of writing. I wouldn't say it was good or anything, but then months, if not years later, you probably said, "Hey, you should make an adult game." And I said, "I don't know, maybe. I don't think I really know how to." He said, "Well, give it a try." So I made some sort of small project that quickly ballooned into something more, and then quickly dropped that no one's ever seen that product. And then tried to scale down the scope, and that didn't work out. But worked on another story, and that's what I've been working on now.
Honestly, I stand by what I said at the time. I don't feel like I was wrong, even if I didn't get to see your first project.
Mm.
It's making games is really not that hard, and I felt like you had the few things that will probably qualify to what I will consider being a good game creator. And you add them in spades. I'll be like, he's intelligent, his English is a million times better than mine. He can obviously
Mm.
write. He has been playing so many games that at this point, regardless if he understands it or not, or regardless if he sees it or not, he probably, he absorbed so much information and so much content that at this time, if he just considers what do you like about the game, you can probably do your own. That was my thought process, and I honestly thought you should make games, and I stand by what I said at the time.
Right. Well, I've learned a lot since starting. Not nearly enough, because when you're a game dev solo or even with a small team, you are wearing so many different hats that you're never going to be an expert at any given one of them. You might be okay. You might not even be good, but it'll pass. Um, like just being someone who sources music for your game, that can be an hour's time consuming job, and it all comes down to taste.
It'll pass. Sometimes is good enough.
Yeah.
Before you started working into adult games, obviously, the things that I stated are important to create adult games. But did you already have any sort of like creative background in art or programming or modding or whatever?
uh no, I don't believe I did. um I can write. That's about all I had going for me, really. I have a mod level comprehension when it comes to like reading code, and I can sort of decipher what things are doing. And of course, I would need to like look up what does this function do, or things like that if I was to read code, and I still can't code at all. But I can have some sort of understanding of it. And as I just jumped into that, it's free software. I was like, okay, well, let me just try to learn this because I can't draw for shit. So, I can try to pose at least, and learn how cameras work. I suppose I did have some understanding of cameras and how that composition is supposed to work. I'm still not great at composition. Um, and in fact, if I were to post something somewhere, I'm sure it would get criticized up, down, left, and right.
So you you got like introduced to entire kind of late in your life, so to speak, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it was in my 20s, so
I
yeah.
mean, I don't know. Maybe the other people's interpretation of late. I don't know. I think 20s is probably late considering how young I know some people have been introduced into the adult game scenes or even non adult games, even just doujins and whatnot. So I was gonna ask you if you had any influences growing up, like in terms of artists or writers that you had that were like your favorites that some doujin artists or some game developers that created games that you felt I want to create games or write stories like this group.
Um, I can't necessarily say that I do or did. I think I've taken a lot of influence from just a lot of different sources. If I had to come back to an RPG uh, kind of influence, the thing that vividly stands out in my mind is Bait and Kaitos because I had that on GameCube, and the game, like, even if you were to play it today, scale it up from its 480p to 1080p with a scaler, it looks great. Um, so yeah, that's the only thing that stands out as far as RPGs go.
That's super valid in my opinion. Like a lot of what is manga today and doujins and God knows what has been influenced by Akira Toriyama. So that man influenced so many genres on so many different in different realms, in different jobs. Like even sometimes music or whatever is influenced by his creations, not just what he
Mm-hmm.
did in like Dragon Ball for in terms of like anime, but what he did with Chrono Trigger and whatnot in terms of games. You see games like Dragon Quest, and then afterwards you see his influence in millions and millions of drawings, not just adult stuff, not or not just stuff for all ages or shonens, but also anti and whatnot. So definitely some games. I feel like they were great influences. Don't you think that once you started developing, you turned on something like a developer brain where you will be watching a movie, something that seems completely innocuous. It's not even adult themed, but you're watching a movie, you're playing a game, and you're like, oh, this gave me a great idea for my game.
Yes. Well, yes. Yeah, watching some movie or seeing some dojin or something, and you're like, that's a great idea. Why the hell hasn't haven't other people use that? Or even just like, uh, especially with dojins, the composition of how they uh, do an image. You'd be like, okay, that's a really good camera angle. Like, man, I would love to use that. Watching a movie, you say, man, that was a great reveal, or they could have done that better. I was less critical of films and all that before I started developing.
Yes, I definitely feel where you're coming from. Do you feel like Bet and Kaido and other games like this, had an influence when you started to when you decided to make your game, by making like an actual, an action kind of like RPG ish, um, like epic storyline? Do you think those games had an influence on you trying to make the game the way you made with choosing this particular genre?
um, yeah, I think it's more that I just like large, fleshed out, grandiose stories. Well, it doesn't necessarily need to be long, but definitely fleshed out. And games like that from mid 2000s, 90s, with their limitations, they stuck with fleshing out their stories as best they could. And they tended to do a really good job of it. I mean, uh, Ocarina of Time, I remember that quite vividly as well. Um, they made you feel like you're going on this grand adventure despite the limitations they had.
Mm-hmm. I definitely feel you on that one. It feels like nowadays you get a bunch of DLCs and you get a bunch of like pre-orders and whatnot. But at the time we used to game games on cartridges, and sure there was the occasional bug here that was super obscure and most people didn't know about, and there were speedrunners trying to break games. But in general, it felt like all the games were like completely fleshed out. There wasn't this idea that, oh, we're just going to release this like this, and if it's broken, we'll just release a patch and fix it.
Right. No, what you put out on disc or cartridge, that is what you got. And maybe there was a later iteration, 6 months later, but for the most part, the product you put out was what people got, and you wanted to make it good.
Especially, I felt that in the Western side of games, because a lot of what we got, the PAL version, came after the US version, which usually will come after the Japanese version. So there's definitely some people play speedrun games in Japanese because they're faster, or because it has a bug that was later on fleshed out before it made it to the United States, or fleshed out before it made it to Europe. So I definitely feel like in terms of cartridges and games that you'll get the late product will be so much more fleshed out, and people were like making games for the right reasons. Like, we are going to make a good game, and people, by realizing it's a good game, they are going to support us and are going to give us money. Whereas nowadays it's like, we're going to make something that creates money, and that's the main goal, and then if it's broken, we'll try to fix it at some point.
Yeah, I think that still exists in the indie development. I mean, we already mentioned that,
right.
As far as Patreon goes, but as far as indie is concerned, they tend to have some sort of vision. It might not be good, but they want to see it happen.
Right.
And like me, they don't necessarily always know how to do it, and they've got to learn everything from scratch.
Sometimes it's better than just being, shoved onto someone else's idea when the original idea is making money. Can you detail the design philosophy behind your main characters? Like, for instance, in Console Flies, you have Marie, and then you have like two side characters that they're kind of like main characters not being the main character. Why did you create them the way that you create them, in terms of like in terms of personality, in terms of design? Did you just were you just playing around with Daz and saw something that you liked, or did you already have like a preconceived idea of what you wanted to build?
So I won't suggest doing what I did, because now that I've done it, what I did originally was I had some sort of idea of what the character would be, vaguely, extremely vaguely. Like, okay, this is their end goal. They want to adventure or something. And then I went in Daz and I made something that looked relatively sexy, or, relatively fit that idea. And then I would flesh it out. But later on, I took those characters and I said, okay, well, what is their ultimate motivation? What are their general likes? And then this was partly promotional, but it also partly helped me. I went ahead and I broke down, like, okay, well, what even is their favorite food? What is their favorite color? Because those are really nuanced things, but at the same time, that can help determine influences that character is going to have. For one of the supporting characters, I knew, okay, well, they're going to be a knight. Well, what is a female knight in this fantasy world? Well, they're probably a tomboy, right? Marie wants to go out and adventure. Well, she's the main character. She just got to look sexy, but she doesn't necessarily need to be a bombshell that you would see on the cover of a magazine. She just needs to have that like natural appeal. I just kind of iterated upon a general idea. It was what I did for each one of those, but I would recommend instead trying to flesh out your character where they fit in the story before you're doing all that, because that can help influence a lot of things.
Do you think their personalities carry them sometimes in terms of like the sensuality and sexuality, or on the appeal they are going to have for the players just as much as the looks?
Yeah, because there were only Japanese games when I was starting to play these games, the Japanese tend to pick like a character trait and they stick with that and they harp on it a lot. For some reason, I'm thinking of Scale Garden games where every character is a super bimbo for some reason. I love those games. Don't get me wrong.
I think they're design choice.
Yeah. And it's a design choice meant to fit the story. And
right.
that is partly my approach, but partly it's just that, okay, well, if they are a tomboy, they're going to get mad when you do certain things. They're going to be frustrated. They're going to try to have some sort of authority even when there's not. If they're an adventurer, they're going to try to do everything it takes to complete the mission, so to speak. So those are influences that can go towards the story or towards a scene. And I have some sort of feature as far as like dominance for the main character. Are they more submissive or are they more dominant towards the antagonists? And I ultimately would like to develop that into, okay, well, you do get something out of being dominant, like the scene plays out differently, or you get something out of being submissive, and maybe even find some middle ground in there, although making 3 different scenes for a single scene,
that's the first thing I thought when you were saying it. As you were saying that, I was thinking, but that implies writing the same scene 3 times depending on where you are in kind of like the dominatrix scale. So if you're dominating, you get one. If you're neutral, you get another one. And if you're submissive, you get another one.
Right. And I am fully aware of the inherent issues of that. I'm fully aware of the terrible idea of creating some sort of clothing system in a game like that, especially when it's not 3D. Like when it's rendered images being layered over top of each other. Clothing systems are really hard when it comes to that, accounting for everything. And that same sort of complexity goes towards those scenes. Although you can make it simple, you don't necessarily have to make the scene completely different. You can make certain things different instead, or you could just change dialogue. But it's a thought I had. This is why earlier on I was saying that it was supposed to be a small project and then it ballooned as far as thoughts and where I would like things to go.
That's kind of what the same thing that happened to Fleeting Iris. Like, still today, I had to explain to people why we couldn't draw 350 original scenes with all our 70 different outfits. And people ask, oh, why can't you do that? And because our budget is not Rockstar's. That's why.
Yeah, I mean, I think in one scene I completely forced a outfit on the main character because I was like, well, the story makes sense for it. I don't feel like rendering it that many times.
Dude, I completely understand you. I had originally, like you said, before the game started to balloon, I had the idea of like let Ayami pick her outfit kind of before she left her house. I regretted it so fast. So if I was like, no, she's gonna have this route, and this route she's gonna be a nurse, and you're gonna see this outfit in this route, period. Like, y'all out of your damn minds if you feel like, because probably the same as you, I played a few other games where obviously you get like, let's be honest, you get like 40 different scenes where you have the same CG reused like 4 or 5 times with 2 or 3 outfits. And then we're like, this base idea works, but what if they increase the scope to this? No, there's a reason they didn't do it. Maybe AI can do it one day and make it seem easy, but right now, come on. It's so, people have no idea how much work and how time intensive that stuff is.
Yeah, I mean, if you come across a game and they've got 6 outfits, and even if the outfits unlock later on or from for some specific thing, but then they like let you walk around in that outfit, the amount of work that went into just that was weeks, months. It wasn't days, it wasn't hours, it was a lot of time. And it's hard to appreciate that because unless you do it, you just do not know.
Right. Definitely. Like people can't really consider the amount of work that goes into that stuff. And at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself the question: do I want to redraw the same scene with different outfits, or do I want to take this time and just invest it into different scenes?
Yeah, and I would recommend the latter because filling out your scene profile is probably more important than variety.
I definitely agree. So when it came to the sex scenes, how did you approach writing them? Like, are they central to the gameplay or of your game, or there's something that comes as a bonus? Do you treat them as pure fan service, or are they like plot critical moments? Are they important? Are they important for character development, or or are they just the main focus of the game, or are the scenes something that just comes as kind of like an afterthought? Like, this game will stand on its own, but it also has sex.
Well, the game would not stand on its own. I can tell. I can tell you that. But I kind of approach each one like, okay, well, where is the character's progression with this individual antagonist? Because there's primarily 3. I have some others that I could turn into antagonists, but I don't really want to right now. And I kind of say, okay, well, where are they at the progression with this? Like corruption wise, and I just kind of push the goalpost a little bit. Like, okay, well, there's kissing in this. What's the stage after that? Well, probably groping. What's the stage after that? Maybe more groping or hand job. I don't know. And then try to fit that into some sort of narrative, make some sense. My protagonist doesn't really have a reason not to interact with them because she wants to solve something and get to the bottom of that. So her motivations are pretty clear. Like, okay, well, I'm going to put up with all this bullshit in order to get what I want.
So it starts kind of like corruption, but at the same time, she kind of gets something out of it. She's like, I'm going to use this to my advantage.
Yeah, and I mean it's very brief where I have her explain like, yeah, this is why we're going to do this.
That's really smart.
But it's like okay, I want this, and this is the best way I know how to do it. So we're going to do this, whether or not anyone reads that, that's up to them.
No, yeah, of course. I also consider that a lot of people are just going to hold control in my game and skip all of the dialogue. But I also think that if you just add like a few moments where you see kind of like the character on this monologue, like inner monologue, where she's kind of like explaining their reasoning behind the scene, or at least what's her interpretation of the scene at the moment, because the character can have the typical, oh, I don't like this at all, but I'm doing this for this character, when the person at home notices that she's already doing some stuff that shows that she is actually enjoying it. She's just lying to herself, which also happens. And some people are going to see that as empowering, as other people are going to be like, oh, that's just being a slut with like extra steps. So obviously a lot of what is the anti comes to like the player interpretation, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, you can sit there and explain all day. It's probably better not to.
Yeah, you can definitely over
wanna
explain. Yeah.
you want to explain the things that matter, and then let your player fill in the rest. Because they're going to get whatever they're going to get out of it. And if you spend all that time writing out all these motivations in detail, or why X and Z happened, it's just going to be a waste of your time and your players. And you have to respect your players' time. If you're making a hentai game, at the end of the day, they are there to get to the hentai. Don't waste their time with all this other stuff. Like if you have combat in your game, that's fine. Just don't make it padding. It's not just there to consume time. It is there for some reason.
I agree. There's definitely a fine line when it comes to like respecting the player's time, and obviously people are going to look at it from a different perspective when you're forcing the players to do some stuff. Usually they're like, okay, why am I being forced to play through this part or to read this bit of dialogue and whatnot? Sometimes you actually think you're doing a good job, but at the end of the day, if you're gonna do that, the best way to do it is probably just give agency to the player, like let them skip the dialogue, or leave stuff up to interpretation. Because at the end of the day, if you pay attention to the beginning of the interview, we played games where we didn't know what was written in there, and we still enjoyed those games because we were making our own stories in our own heads. And to be honest, some games where I later started learning Japanese and I started translating and whatnot, I was like, oh, I like my version better.
Yeah, no, yeah. Being able to, you also have to assume your player base has some sort of imagination.
Right.
They might not all have it, but there are some assumptions you're gonna have to make. Like the assumption that they're just not gonna read your story, that they're going to want to skip it.
Yes.
I made the assumption with that game, that with what I was making, because I've certainly played a game, read some of it, and been like, holy shit, this sucks. Let me just get to the good stuff.
you know what I feel it's like the ultimate test is when you look at your own stuff and you're like, you look at it and you're like, would I read this? Like when I'm playing my own game, am like, ugh, and I try to skip that part? Because if you're like, oh, not this part again, if you feel that and you're the dev, they're definitely gonna feel that.
Right. I don't know if I've been that critical about it for a while. I think sometimes I'll look back at it and I'll say, well, this dialogue could be spruced up a bit, or I could put in some subtext here or there, or foreshadowing. But I'm not sure I've always been quite successful at that.
Were in the scenes that you created, were there any fetishes or kinks that you specifically wanted to include that you never seen done well before, or just that in general you just appreciate from seeing in other games or doujins, and you're like, yeah, I definitely need to add this to my game?
Anything specific? Well, I do not have any really weird fetishes myself. so I'm not putting in diaper porn or anything. And there's certain fetishes out there which I could take it or leave it. I don't really care. It doesn't bother me.
Such as urination.
Yeah, urination doesn't bother me, I guess. Drinking it, probably. Scat does bother me. I did not would never touch that with a.
Do you consider making those missable or skippable in case, because those type of fetishes are probably enough for some to turn off some people, or turn them away from your game. When you create those fetishes, do you make them skippable with that in mind, or you're like, nah, I mean, it's just this, you can, don't watch if you don't like it.
Yeah, no. Well, if I were to put something in that I don't think people would like let's say I were to put in Fudenaris, right? Which it's a fantasy world. It's perfectly reasonable to assume that's possible, right? Or what else is jarring? Shadakan or bestiality, right?
Not
Like
to mention
any of
illegal in
those.
some countries.
Yeah, so any of those, uh, it would be like a whole separate route. You'd have to choose that. Well, and then one of the side characters I have, he you can choose to sissify the character, right? Like, do I personally care about sissification? No, but as far as that character exists, where they are mentally, uh, it seemed reasonable to include that, and that's something that some people like.
So, in your game, what you will consider the key mechanic? Like, if you could only point out to one game mechanic, like outside of the explicit scenes, that you believe that makes your game unique or fun, what will it be, and why did you decide to implement it?
Uh, did you say unique mechanic?
No, the key mechanic. It might be
Oh,
unique to your
key.
game, but what do you
Well,
consider
I
it
don't-
to
I
be the
don't-
key mechanic?
I don't think anything I've done is unique. It's not Flying Princess Interbreed.
Ah, that's it.
But no, I guess just giving the player route choice, um, and if I were to make a smaller game, it wouldn't have that. I'm just giving you the option to choose. Well, I think I would. This character is going to give me what I want, and I'm never going to tell you that this character is going to give you X fetish or X result, but you might be able to figure that out yourself, and you'll have ample time to stop before you get too far.
Did you make those choices like, how should I explain it? So in Fleeting Hours, what happened was the game has a lot of choices, and sometimes it's not even choices. It's depending on how you build your character. Later in the game, there might be some lines of dialogue or some scenes or whatever it is that are completely different depending on the choices you made early on or how you built your character. And apparently they are so seamless that a lot of people think that you do not make choices during Fleeting Hours, right? Whereas there are games where the choices are immediately consequential. If you pick this, you get a scene. If you pick this, you don't get a scene. But later down the road, your choice there might have very little influence on the game as a whole. Where does your game fit in that style? Does it have like immediate but not later down the road impact, or the other way around, or do you think it makes an impact now and an impact later down the road?
Well, I'm always forcing you to make a choice right now, and it's obvious. Choose to go to this antagonist or this antagonist to do stuff, and then you get a choice halfway in as to whether or not you want to kind of resist their advances or not. And it does immediately result in a difference in the scene. It might be subtle, but later on the road, it would become more drastic.
Yeah, the problem with that happened with Fleeting Hours was literally that apparently it was just that apparently the choices were so seamless that player never actually realized they were making choices. So unless they played the
Right.
game again and they felt like, wait, last time I've been here, things played out a little different. So unless you play the game multiple times, you don't actually see those, those changes, causing impact in the game.
Right. We're not late development as far as story goes, so I can't say that I'll be able to achieve everything I want, and that your choices will have drastic changes. Oh, you'll be amazed at what happens. I'm not AAA game dev on stage here trying to oversell it, but I would like ultimately there to be some sort of drastic change, even in Marie's the protagonist's personality. Like she starts out as a young woman wanting to go on an adventure, and through the story she'll grow up into something else.
As in general, what game mechanics were the most important for you to include in your game? Like the choice systems, the corruption meter that you mentioned. Is there time cycles, relationship building? Like, which mechanics do you think your game has that you felt like I need to include this for the game to feel like the game that I wanted to build?
Probably just the relationship stuff, because I mean that's kind of central to the story. I'm pretty sure I mentioned earlier that I kind of like it when things flesh out a fair amount. The interaction between these two people, like you go and read dojins and like an NTR dojin, and they can vary widely. You can have like just instant NTR, she's cheating immediately, or she's pushing back and then falling into the depths of her lust or his lust, whatever it is. And I tend to lean towards the latter. I think the former has its place, but it's also kind of trash to me, because if you're reading a dojin, you're kind of there for the story. Why else are you reading it? If I just want images, I can go on Pornhub or RedTube or whatever the fuck to find that. It's all out there.
Yeah, that tends to be my perspective on it as well. I don't know if everyone agrees. I definitely feel like as I started developing games, I started like valuing other people's perspectives on things a lot more. I'm still going to make my game, but I definitely I understand that I've got all sorts of criticism that the game was playing out too fast, or the game was playing out too slow, or the character was like too slow to corrupt, or or the character was like a turbo slut. And we're talking about the same experiences, depending on different people. They're going to have a completely different experience. So there's definitely people that only play the game for the art and they want to skip the context, they want to skip the dialogue. And then there's people like you and I, where we definitely believe that unless you see the context and the art and the dialogue and whatnot, you're not going to be able to appreciate the scene to the full extent, so to speak. So when it comes to you, what role do you think, like, what role does the audience feedback play on your development? Like, especially from early access on Patreon and all your supporters, how does that play into shaping the final content of your game? Like, are there boundaries you won't cross based on fan requests? You already mentioned scat, or you're open to interpretation? You're just like, I gotta give the people what they want.
Yeah, well, I'm only one person, so I would probably just categorize things like, okay, well, how many people are saying they would prefer this? And then I would take that feedback and I'd probably ask someone that I respect to a certain extent as far as their opinion, and like, do you think this is worth at all pursuing, or do you think this is a good idea? But ultimately, I would read it, take the feedback, and then I'd say, well, this either fits or it doesn't fit, or it isn't worth the time investment.
Do you make a lot of polls? Do you put a lot of weight into those?
Yeah, see, the problem with polls is how much feedback you're actually going to get. If only 20 people are answering, those are probably 20 of your best fans that are paying attention to your stuff all the time. Whereas, your player base might be 10, 20, 100, 200 times larger than that. And I would hope that it is. And if you're not getting the feedback of everyone, you don't really know. But if you have enough people playing your game or saying they've played your game, but not really being active in the community, then you probably just need to respect your own opinion at that point, because clearly you're doing something right.
Respect your own opinion. I like that. I definitely like that perspective. Like, usually you have something you even if you only get a small percentage out of a much bigger group, usually you get something very approximately to 5 to 10% error rate. But you might end up catering mostly to your community and not fit like a bigger group that you might want to reach as a developer. You might end up being like a niche developer, because if you start making an NTR game and then you ask your crowd, do you think NTR is mandatory in a game for the game to be good? Obviously, you're going to get a lot of people saying, yeah, definitely NTR is the way to go. But if you ask it in general, you might not get the same answer. So at the end of the day, the question is, do you want to cater to those that stood by you from the start, that actually kind of match your vision, or do you want to stay open to attracting a bigger crowd, even if it makes you stray away from the original path?
As a dev, it certainly depends on your disposition. My opinion is that you need to be willing to change your vision of things to an extent, because generally if people are giving feedback, there's a reason. And if it's bad feedback, it could either be related to their own personal tastes, or it could be because, well, you're not really putting out a good game, but they like where you could be headed. And there's plenty of examples out there of people like creating something in a vacuum and then it doesn't really turn out to be any good, but the core concept is a decent idea. When it comes to NTR, there's a reason I put in the option there, because I knew it's a hot topic for some people. My personal opinion is that if you don't like NTR, it's because you're seeing yourself as the cuck and you don't like that.
I get it.
But I realized that was a thing, and I said, okay, well, I can make it avoidable. It's not that hard. It's possible. We can make that work into the story. But if a bunch of people start approaching me and saying, your game's really great, the character's hot, I would like to see more pissing content. And I think, okay, well, it's possible, I suppose. Do I want to do that right now? No. I'll think about it. If I got enough feedback saying yes, then, maybe I'd do it. But if I'm not liking it or not enjoying doing it, I would probably just stop, That's why I wouldn't make scat stuff, because, if I had 2,000 patrons and all 2,000 of them said, I want to see scat in the game, I'd be like, well, I don't want to see it though. So
right. And there's tolerance levels at the end of the day. Like for me, scat is also something that I'm like, sorry, bro, I can't write it. Like I cannot mentally make this in my brain. I cannot make this attractive whatsoever. And I'm probably going to be looking at the scenes and probably feel disgusted. But for instance, I made a bestiality DLC that it's free and people can get. It's not in the main game because first of all it's illegal in a few countries, and second I don't want to force it even accidentally down anyone's throat. But I had so many supporters asking for it that I was like, sure, I'm gonna give it a try. And I do feel like I did not make a great job, but I did try my best. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like, this came with a disclaimer, guys. Like, I'm not big into this fetish. I try to do as much research as possible, and at the end of the day, this is what I ended up doing. And it was the same thing for the Shota patch. Like, I even did more research because I knew how negatively some people saw the bestiality stuff. And when it came to the Shota stuff, I was like, okay, let me go read a lot about this and incest and whatnot. And I read so much. And honestly, some of the stuff that I read, I wish I didn't. Because there's definitely something as way too much information. Like, I'm the type of person that usually say information is a good thing, but some stuff will scar you. And at the end of the day, especially when it comes to fetishes like NTR or Shota or whatever, we need to remember that we are creating games that evoke emotions, and some of these emotions are incredibly real, and sometimes they call to people's, real trauma, that people experienced real stuff. So I definitely understand where people come from when they have this like massive aversion to certain fetishes, especially when it comes to NTR and other stuff that people might have experienced, like rape or whatever it was. And definitely there's people that cannot play that because it kind of makes their trauma more vivid. But if I feel that there's something that I'm not completely disgusted about, and it's something that I can deliver, I'll probably make it like avoidable with huge neon signs like only click this if. But at the end of the day, I might try exploring it and whatnot. But I definitely try to respect how different people interact with the game, so to speak. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, even going back to NTR, you mentioned rape with that, and it's just like occasionally I think about it, and it's like, yeah, NTR and blackmail tend to just boil down to rape in a lot of ways. Like, are they agreeing to it at some level? Well, probably
rape
yes,
for sure,
but not really.
NTR, not
so
really.
It ends up being rape. Yeah. So as a developer, you gotta be aware to draw a line, where to draw the line, and
yeah, like I definitely feel like there's like multiple lines of like where coercion, like at the end of the day, it's like to this point it's legal or illegal to do it, and when you're borderlining on something that could be illegal in real life, there are some sensitivities that are going to be hurt. But at the end of the day, as a developer, you got to be like, okay, I'm not advocating for this. And the best thing about hentai games is, even if people want to see certain fetishes, or if people want to see something that is like out of the norm, you're keeping it in drawings. That's
right. It's fantasy, and
even if it's fantasy, I've stumbled upon acting of rape on porn, right? Mm-hmm. And it felt so realistic that I felt like very uneasy watching it, because the guy and the girl were doing like such a good job that I was like, yeah, okay, this is definitely not for me. I'm feeling uneasy just looking at it, right? But there's definitely people that look at it and they feel like, oh, this is hot. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like, is there a direct correlation or causation where watching this is going to make you a rapist? Or watching a guy, obviously there's countries like Australia that feel like if you play GTA, you're going to go out on the street and start slashing people's heads, right?
Yeah.
But obviously there's no consensus on this, and the evidence is very poor. Like, we have so many generations of people playing Mortal Kombat and not ripping people's head with their spine on and stuff, So there's definitely some people that are more susceptible to the teams that they play. But at the end of the day, once you are an adult, right, with decisions and agency and whatnot, once you are an adult, society can only protect you up to some point. At some point, it has to be you or people that are responsible for you that say that's not for you. But you should let everyone else decide what they want to do. Like, why are you hitting on like some types of porn and then you allow people to do OnlyFans? And people are going to ask, what do you mean allow me? I'm an adult. I do whatever the fuck I want. So if I want to sell, pictures of my coochie online, I'm going to do that. Right? Mm-hmm. And for us, it's that, but on a very much lower bar. Because it's that, but it's drawings. Like,
right.
There's not even people acting on this. It's literally just drawings of these scenarios where we say in many, many, many disclaimers, do not do stuff like this in real life. So you're acting those fetishes on drawings. It's not even on actors. It's drawings. The only thing that we urge people to do is leave this for the drawings. And I feel like that's by far the most, sensible, responsible way to go about this.
Yeah, I hope that it stays that way for most people.
And for most fetishes.
Yeah. Ultimately, if you are going out and you're playing a hentai video game, you probably aren't going to act on those things because it's a game to you. You are aware of that for most people. And I hope that's the case.
Yeah, but like the same way I'm like, okay, this is Shota, and this is just me. I know this is kind of like going away from the interview, but it's kind of like explaining our perspective on some stuff. And this is important. This is kind of like why I wanted to do these interviews. It's because it's so that we can debate the industry and debate what makes a game good or bad. And when it comes to NTR or Shota or this or that, it's not just because we see a little kid. For instance, I don't like loli. I don't like when it's a male figure taking advantage of a small female figure. However, even when it comes to Shota, I don't like when it's the mature woman abusing the small child. I find it funny when it's the smart ass kid, this wise kid that finds its way into the woman's pants. Like, this kid is smart, and he's usually the one doing the coercion and stuff. And this usually plays out some funny ass scenarios that at the end of the day might also kind of appeal to some old deep and rooted fetishes that we had. Like, who was the kid that never had a crush on a teacher, right? And the whole power dynamic and the whole being able to be with someone that usually we will not be able to be with. And there's a lot of things that are very intricate on when it comes to hentai that we love exploring, because at the end of the day, it's hentai, it's drawings. The same way I love playing battle royales, but if you just give me like some jeans and an AK, I'm not going to start killing people for a chicken dinner. Like, it's not going to happen. So
I don't know, how good's that chicken?
That chicken has to be really fucking good, bro. Like, I need to be really, really fucking starving. So my point is that, like, we are enacting stuff that even if we had a choice and no one actually ever learned about it, we will never do these things in real life. So we're just trying to enact scenarios that are so outlandish that we feel comfortable with seeing them in cartoons, but we, even if it was like actresses, we will not be able to see them. But at the end of the day, we gotta respect people's rights, and we gotta, because at the end of the day, what are rights? Rights are just something that you can physically protect or not. And when you have certain people telling you as an adult that you can smoke yourself to death and you can drink yourself to death and that you can go rush into the front lines and get shot, and when you come home you cannot see a cartoon titty, come on now. Like, how far are we going to keep trying to daddy society? People,
that cartoon titty might have some malicious thoughts behind it.
I don't know, man. Like at the end of the day, I feel like we need to let people choose their poison. Even if you
Right.
feel like it's negative for them, they are adults. It's their right to pick what they want to see or not. Is it uh, um is it negatively influencing society? And this has been proven that it doesn't. So at the end of the day, you need to let people do whatever they want to do and stop trying to push your agenda down people's throats, especially when they're adults. You know what I mean? Because no one is being hurt at the end of the day.
Yeah, well, I'm also acutely aware of overconsumption of things like hentai or hentai games or adult entertainment. There is a healthy balance to that as well. Beyond just, is this fetish okay to draw and then distribute? But then, are people also consuming this in moderation, to maintain that this is a fantasy. This isn't your everyday life, that you're consuming it so often that it has warped your reality of thinking and the way you perceive the world.
Yeah, but in most people, at best, what it's going to do, it's kind of like mess with your mess with your libido, mess with your, oh, I want to start doing more extreme stuff because I saw it in this. But again, this all comes down to people being susceptible, especially
Right.
if you're young. Like a gentle breeze is going to give you a hard on. You don't need any help or any fetish to help you get in the mood. Like, you know what I mean? And when you
That
get
breeze feels pretty good.
yeah, and when you get older, like you're kind of exploring these scenarios, because at the end of the day, like, I don't try to judge. Like, I see people playing Vuro and Gore, where you see like people just having sex with bodies with no legs and no arms and whatnot, and
Yeah, okay, that's another one I draw the line on now that you bring it up.
yeah, but I draw the line there. I'm not afraid that, like, it's not for me, but that does not mean that I'm afraid that somewhere out there was a guy that played that game and was like, you know what I need to do today? I need to completely I'm not. That's not a thing. I'm not afraid that people start doing Vuro and Gore in real life. Like, people that do that were already not good on a certain way, and they're probably just going to use this to go do something that they will end up doing something crazy later down the road anyway. Like, if watching an anti-titty was the straw that broke the camel's back, that camel was gonna break anyway.
Yeah, and that's probably pretty good assessment of it. It's a thought that pops into my head occasionally, where, like, am I doing a bad thing by making this?
Yeah, no.
Am I somehow influencing someone in a way that I don't intend to? Like, I'm just making this because I want to make something good. Not necessarily because I want someone to go out and blackmail someone.
Yeah, like, if people could actually prove that whatever I was doing was actually causing, like, damage to people, I will be like, okay, it's time to assess what I'm doing. But that's not what that's at all not what I get from what I create. Like, I remember many years ago, over a decade ago, there was a guy that said, hey guys, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to step away from this because I joined the church and they made me analyze some stuff, and at the end of the day, I feel like porn is becoming a negative influence in my life and in my marriage and whatnot. And I respect that, but at the end of the day, that's not what I usually get from what I create. People tell me, I get home at the end of the day, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, my job has been shit, and I try to get some sort of escapism from real life, and I play your games, and usually I have a really great time. I can't wait for the next patch. I really feel like this character is sexy. I hope to see more of them, and usually it feels like it brings more of a positive influence in people's lives than it brings negative. Now we do have to outweigh we do have to weigh the negative versus the positive. If you are doing good by 20 people, but you are completely ruining the life of one person, you gotta put it on the scales. But so far, in regarding all the, and I'm not trying to just be on a bubble here, but most of the studies I saw were either positive or inconclusive, and I definitely feel like we're giving people a form of escapism that they could not find on any other way, or at least on a morally acceptable way. So I definitely feel like we're on a net positive, not just on doing something that we're passionate about, but on in terms of morally. Like there's no line in the Bible, do not draw a cartoon titties. You know what I'm saying? I don't think there's something that I don't think there's anything innately evil about just doing this. It's a form of escapism. But some people are just so restrictive about what they can and they cannot do, that they end up just not living life altogether. Anyway, go ahead.
I had a joke, but I forgot it.
That's a pretty good joke.
Yeah,
that's a pretty good joke. If you remember it, do feel free to interrupt me.
So I think it was I partake in fantasy for all of about 5 minutes until I escape.
Oh my god. We have only a couple more questions for you, and then I'm gonna let you go. We have actually been going through these a lot faster than I expected us to. So how far out do you plan your game's content? Are you constantly pivoting based on immediate market trends? Like, there's people that see a scene on like, I don't know, what's that game? The Goose Game, the Korean show. Well, there's just scenes, and there's some mangas or whatnot that become trend, and people instantly rush to make scenes about them. Especially when it comes to that 3D, I've seen that done so many times.
Right.
Are you executing like a locked-in vision that will take years to fully realize, or are you going with the flow and like letting people's opinions and current trends decide where you're going with your game?
I don't really pay attention to the trend. I guess I do to an extent. But no, I do not follow the trends in that way. I don't see, there's a lot of popular stuff coming out right now with big titty goth girlfriends, so let me introduce a big titty goth girlfriend. No, like, if I want to put in a big titty goth girlfriend, I'm doing it because I want it, not because not because someone else suddenly got 10,000 likes on Twitter.
Yeah, you're not gonna put your characters in that super ridiculous split position that everybody did for a while.
Not in the game.
Or with the mocha over the breasts. Remember the mocha breasts thingy?
Yeah, the boba.
The boba
in between the titties.
Right.
Not in the game. Maybe just because I'm like, let me see if I can render this out real quick.
Yeah, that's a way to put it. So if someone's listening to the podcast to this podcast right now, and they want to start doing their own adult game project, what is the single most important piece of non-technical philosophical advice that you could give them?
Non-technical philosophical advice. Be prepared to work for a long time on what you're doing and not necessarily be good at it. Accept that you're going to be bad and that you'll get better with time. Like, you're going to be so much worse than you expected. And just accept that, I'm going into this not good, and I'm going to get terrible criticism, and I need to be able to filter that out, or take it for what it is. If you're going to put out your game, and someone's going to call it trash, or you're also going to have people there that are going to say, I see the potential in this. I really like it. And you need to be aware that you don't have to have a completely polished product. You can go ahead and put out something that does have bugs and tell people, like, yeah, there's some bugs in it. I'm going to try to fix them. I may not know how right now, but I will try. But at the same time, realize that you are going to have to fix those bugs. Don't just let them sit there because it's only going to get worse from there.
I mean, those two advices are absolutely great. One of them that you said, be prepared to put a lot of time into it. Funny is, be prepared to put a lot of time into things that will never see the light of day. Because you're going to be working on a lot of stuff that at the end of the day you're just gonna like, no, this is trash, scrap it. And on the other thing that you said, I also want to add a little tidbit of info. I've worked on floating hours for like 10 years, and my list of I need to go back in there and fix this at some point, it just kept getting bigger. I never fixed it. Do not do that.
No, fix it as soon as you can, because it's just gonna sit there. It's gonna get worse.
100%.
Especially if it's a big problem. Like, I had a problem, and it's probably the one that's on itch.io still has this problem, where the game would crash randomly, and I believe it was because some of the music had the Japanese title in the name of the file, and that would cause it to crash. Like, that frustrates people. It frustrated me. If you're playing a game for like 30 minutes or an hour on the weekend, and you just got off from your job at Kroger's, or your wife is out and you want some alone time, whatever, it's frustrating to just be like, this shit doesn't work.
Yeah. We have someone in chat that asked you a question. Noviknek 1113 asked, would you recommend the use of AI for these new projects?
So I think AI has a place. The thing about AI in a lot of cases right now, if you know what you're looking for, it's still recognizable. I think
for sure.
I think one place that AI actually has a lot of potential for game developers that are solo is in voice acting, because with the advances it's been making, you can easily just feed it text and get a voice file output that'll elevate your game. But you can also use AI for generating background art. If you're doing a visual novel, you can use it to help you, figure out how to write something. It has its place, but you need to recognize where that is. And with art, the problem with AI is that you're going to generate so much of it to get anything usable that if you're paying for it, you're going to go broke fast. Like, if you're paying to generate 50 images, you might only get one or two that you can use.
For sure.
So paying to generate all that, you better be working 3 jobs. It's not inexpensive to do. There are tools to generate AI images on your own hardware, but you have to invest in being able to do that. You have to invest in the hardware to be able to do that with, and that is also not a cheap proposition.
Yeah, you're looking at 3,000-4,000 at least.
It really depends on how much investment you want to make into it as well, because with at-home setups for AI, there's a lot of learning involved that you could be spending somewhere else. So you kind of need to recognize where your skill set is when you're going into things. If you are like I said way earlier, I can write. That's about all I got going for me when I started. But I couldn't do art. If AI was big back then, would I have looked at that? Probably. I settled on DAZ at the time, and that's where I'm at now because, well, I've invested in a DAS library, so why not use it? Where I would personally use AI at this point is maybe to touch up my own images, because AI would be able to do that, whereas I may not be as skilled at it. I can passively do things, but the AI might do better at it.
100%. I agree with you 100%. And to add to that, like I'll give you guys an example. We started working with AI a couple of months ago. We're still trying to render our characters and whatnot, and we took a break to start and try to do animations with AI, which will save us a lot of time, and financially it will save us a lot of money. And when Halloween came, which was a month ago, we had to render pictures of Ayame in like Halloween costumes because we wanted to release a picture for X. And I kid you not, we probably got AI to render 1,000 pictures in something like 2 hours. And out of those 1,000 pictures, probably like half a dozen were presentable. And on another thing that Advint touched was AI right now. My personal perspective for this is there's still a lot of mankind is still kind of fighting back against AI right now, because like Edwin said, it's if you know what to look for, and you don't have to you don't need to know that well. You at some point your eyes are like pre-trained to see what is AI and what is not after you've seen enough of it, right? But in music, there's a lot of stuff already that you will can be so well done that you can even tell that it's AI anymore. But definitely when it comes to projects where it's art and whatnot, I definitely feel like AI works better as a complement to work that you're already doing, other than being the main source of your work. Like if you write on your own, and you definitely should, because people are being less and less creative nowadays because they instantly resort to AI without trying to do things on their own, especially young kids where their brains are still developing. You should try to do as much as you can on your own. So what I do is I write all the text on my own, and then I just ask AI to try and improve it, or try to like proofread it and whatnot. And then I go through a process which is kind of like AI gives me back, I make changes, I give it AI changes, gives me back, I make changes, I give it back, and AI kind of complements the work that I'm already doing. And for when it comes to drawing, you can do your own drawing, and then you can train your AI to learn how to colorize your stuff, for instance, or to make small edits on stuff that you didn't get right. And AI can be a nice complement to that stuff. But there's still some backlash on AI, and there's definitely people that see AI as a negative thing, and there's definitely a little bit of exhaustion on AI. So at the end of the day, I will definitely suggest that right now you might be met with some resistance to AI made stuff. That's why there's very little on Journey Abroad, and that's why all of it comes with a disclaimer. It's a way to go about it, but there's definitely a lot of people that see it negatively. So it's going to be up to you. Morgan said,
actually,
go ahead.
Sorry, one thing I did think of while you were talking is if you have hired an artist to work alongside you making a game, AI would be great for filling in all the stuff while you're waiting on your artist. That is one place where it could help you. If you have a faster development cycle than your artist can meet, the AI can fill that void until your artist catches up.
Morgan asked a question, but I didn't quite get the question. But it just says that you have a nice voice, and he's not the first person that I heard saying it. I've had a few friends saying, "Who's that talking on the microphone?" And it's like, "Oh, it's a friend of mine, Advint." Man, he has a nice voice. Maybe you should do your own voice acting.
Well, I'm no voice actor. I don't, and the problem with voice acting, and you have to respect voice actors for this, because enunciation is important when it comes to that. And I have recorded myself, and I can pick out the details where it's like, okay, well, I'm holding my S's too long, or there's a bit of a extension on that word where there doesn't need to be. So yeah, that's a skill set I don't necessarily want to get into.
But you can work. You can work on that. Do you have any idea for how many years have I been speaking English on a daily basis for hours and hours and hours, and I am so self-conscious about sounding so bad because it's not my native language, and it's already bad in Portuguese because I have like a deeper voice, but my voice is raspy. So I always I try to talk on a lower tone because being raspier hurts my voice. And the problem is when I speak on my normal voice, after a while I cannot turn it off. It's kind of weird. Sometimes I'm in the shower and I try to sing on my regular voice. After a while my throat is hurting and I can no longer turn it off. It's just not something that I can turn on or off. When it comes to English,
you can train yourself for sure.
In my everyday life, I am not that much of a talker. I mostly keep to myself and choose my words when I'm speaking to someone. So that's where my problem comes in. I don't do enough talking to train myself.
That's not what I'm laughing about. Morgan said, "Is that the do this guy?" And I asked, "What do you mean do this guy?" And it's like, oh, when you say something in general chat, he answers with do this and then emoji of I am like come this or suck this or what. Yeah. Yes, same guy.
I am the
He's the cum guy.
Yeah. Post these and then I post
yes
boobs.
Yes,
Yeah.
I knew people were gonna catch up on that eventually.
I mostly do that because you don't have a lot of people that respond when you post something like that. So I'm just like, all right, I'm gonna start this chain off.
I just think that people, like, especially when it comes to this type of subjects where it's in Thai, not a lot of people feel confident enough to kind of be out there or answer. But I understand that people, like, I have metrics. I know who read it. I know how many people read it. I know that even though people don't interact with it, I know that it reached people. So most of I'm still going to post it anyway. But yeah, there's not a lot of people.
I know. I think the people that enjoy your game and join your Discord, I think most of them tend to try to be somewhat private. So that's why they don't really interact as much.
Yeah, and right now we have 8,900 active people on Discord. Well, how are they being active? I have no idea.
They joined for a reason, and maybe they visit every now and then, but
This is awesome. I lost the mute button. I need to mute myself because I need to get my headset is not working, and there's definitely a lot of things that I need to fix for the next podcast that I do regarding this. The image is clearly not the right size. I need to get some headsets so that people won't listen to the reverb on my microphone. There's definitely a few things that I need to change here, but this episode was perfect because I got a lot of the information that I was looking for, and I know that it was entertaining because, like Morgan said, you have a nice voice that people can easily understand, and that's something that I'm very self-conscious about myself, is that people a lot of times won't understand what I'm saying because it sounds like I'm talking way too fast and I don't enunciate the words the way that I should, which is funny because when people ask what's the trick behind Morgan Freeman's voice, he says make sure you definitely enunciate the ending of your words. So when you say words, don't just say words, just say words. And it was kind of like explaining to people how to always end the words by enunciating the end properly instead of trying to like use it as a sinusoidal out, or kind of like a line out, or a song where the song is kind of like muting itself towards the end. People have a tendency to do that, And he said, do not do that when you are acting. Make sure you enunciate all of your words. And that's definitely something that my tongue developed and is trained on a specific manner. I can speak a lot of languages to an acceptable point, especially Latin languages, or some Arabic languages, because of the way that my tongue works. But saying things like thong, where there's the th makes like a snap, a click off the tongue, that those type of sounds I feel so self-conscious about, because it sounds like I have a speech impediment and I'm trying to speak English and I can't properly, even though I have practiced for God knows how many years. And I'm super self-conscious about it. And when you say, yeah, I can't be a voice actor because I don't enunciate a little bit of the ending, when you sound so clear, it's kind of like such a slap in the face. You have no idea.
I'm hypercritical of my voice acting. and
When it comes to game dev, you will be hypercritical of yourself, but you need to also accept that sometimes it doesn't need to be perfect. Sometimes it just needs to work.
Morgan said a lot of people on Discord are lurkers from F95 waiting for the next update to drop. I know, I was one of them.
Well, that's probably true, but yeah, at least you made your way here.
Yeah, see?
Yeah.
Advint, to finish off, can you how can our listeners reach you and find out more about you and your projects?
Well, I have the subscribe star. I haven't done anything with it in a long time. I am
maybe
on
this is the time to start. Maybe on the Christmas holidays you have some time to flesh out some of the stuff that you've been meaning to for a while.
Yeah, well, the email is still active for that subscribe star, so it's possible. And then I've got Discord for the game, but I'd have to give Stark the link. He's in it though. No one ever talks in there. I don't blame them.
I absolutely am in it.
There's nothing going on. But if you were to post in there, I'm there.
my Discord has 9,000 active people. No one talks in there. Yeah. It's normal.
It's mostly just the admins, the mods, and a couple other people that are from the old forum.
Well, at least I get feedback when I post a poll, so I got that going for me, which is nice.
Yeah, no, that there's something to be said about that. I mean, because if you put a poll on Twitter, God knows who will answer.
The last time I did, I got like 2,000 answers, but yeah, who knows who is answering it. But if you guys can't find him anywhere else, you can also find him as the Do This Guy in our Discord. You can also find him on X with what do they call these nowadays? The sign name, whatever
handle.
The handle, yeah, his Twitter/X handle is @FleetingHearts, as you can see on the screen. So that will be a place, a good start to find him, and then from there you can find his Discord, and you can probably find his subscribe star, which is probably on his X page once you land on there. So yeah, Advint, thank you so much for being with me today and giving me this the opportunity to get this interview from you. Definitely, I learned a lot, not just from Anti, but for future editions. And maybe later down the road, once your game is a little bit more developed, we can do another interview.
That is possible. Maybe even play the game on. No, wait, we can't. Hold on, this is YouTube.
We could, yeah. If we do that, to do that, we probably need to. I think that the best place to do it right now, and I'm not sure, it might be Picarto, but we definitely need to respect YouTube's limitations.
Yeah,
it is what it
limitations.
is. I mean, I get it. The type of people that go in there, like, we don't want them to accidentally stumble upon adult content.
Yeah, don't want any kids looking for Roblox stumbling upon big old double D's.
Yeah, damn. All right, Advint, thank you so much for showing up today. As for everyone else, I will see you guys on Monday with the first developer podcast, and we'll see how that works out, and maybe Advint even might join me on a few of those, and see if you can give us some tips on his developing. Morgan said once Bloodlust drops, there will be more action on Discord, asking if NTR is avoidable. Trust me. God damn it.
NTR avoidable. Let's.
No, it's absolutely. Thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you, Advint, for showing up, and I'll see you guys on Monday. Take care, guys.
Thanks for having me.
Okite, wakari, ne, boshitata. 思い出したのは君のことです。起きて、明